Hey, wake up, listen up, old people. This is the episode you're all afraid of, social media. Because if you have a kid in youth soccer, you know this feeling. You say followers don't matter, you say the clips don't matter, you say it's about the work, the training, the team development, and then tryout season starts, kids are moving around, things are getting posted, club shares are real, someone gets featured, another parent says, hey, did you see that post on that kid? Suddenly you start wondering, are you smart? Are you active enough?
I don't even know where to go with this, Liron. Because exposure is one of the most loaded words in youth soccer. Parents want it for their kids. Players feel it. Clubs understand it. Platforms create it. But nobody really defines what it means. Is exposure a showcase, a scout, a college coach, a highlight video, a post that gets seen by the right person, or is it just another thing that makes families feel like they are left behind?
Today, we're talking with David Rodriguez, the founder of Footy Access. And man, this guy knows social media. Even better than you, Matt. He built a platform around something American soccer did not really have in a way of basketball or football or baseball did for that matter. Media coverage for young players coming through the system. But this conversation is not just about highlight reels and clips. It's about what gets noticed, what should get noticed, and what parents misunderstand. Oh, and there is a lot.
Yeah, David's an incredible guy who's got a mission for this and has stood by it. And we talk about when exposure helps, when it does not, why parents cannot pay to have a player featured, and why social media can open a door but cannot become the whole plan. Because being posted does not mean you're going pro. Oh, Liron, you gotta stop writing these lines. Having followers does not mean you are on the right path. And being invisible online does not mean the path is closed.
You know, this is, as Matt, you like to say, this is the episode that lives in the area in between, the in-between space. Not that social media is bad or social media is good and is everything, but more complicated, nuanced questions, which is not normal for this podcast. How do you help a kid be seen without turning their childhood into some marketing campaign? This is hashtag chasing the game at Youth Soccer in America. Hashtag. Welcome to the podcast, my friend.
Thank you so much for having me. It means a lot.
Take us back a little bit to the beginning on what really started Footy Access. And when was the moment that you said, wait a minute, look at this. There needs to be a platform here.
So growing up, obviously, played soccer my whole life. Always a big fan, on and off the field. I grew up in Northern Virginia, so it was a good level. Used to play against a lot of guys that are now playing pro and currently still playing overseas or in the MLS. And I was always surrounded by a lot of those guys. So I was able to develop my game and then go play collegially at Longwood University. So played there, kind of speaks to my age a little bit, but I was playing there in 2020. Yeah, 2020. So that was my first year, fall of 2020, and experienced a bit of a roller coaster, obviously during COVID. So that's really where I realized I wanted to do something that was more in line with what I wanted to do in the long term, something that I had much more control over, that wasn't dependent on someone else besides myself. That was the only thing that was important to me in that time, was doing something that was sustainable, that I cared about, and that I could have influence in. So around that time, I saw that there were still so many different platforms that were highlighting basketball, American football, baseball, right? They were all getting a lot of exposure at the youth level. But what I realized is that nobody was doing it for soccer, primarily in, let's say, the United States. So ultimately, I realized halfway through my sophomore year, well, if no one's done it, why don't I just do it? So I ended up actually dropping out of college halfway through my sophomore year. Still remember calling my dad, and he was like, well, what about soccer? He didn't even ask about the school. He was like, what about soccer? You're going to stop playing soccer? And I was like, yeah, I mean, look, I'm planning to still stay involved in soccer, right? That's still my passion. It's just in a different approach, right? So that's really how it all came about. Around the same time, the DA had just closed down and the MLS Next League had just started. So it seemed like there was a reset in the market for youth soccer in America. So it was a variety of different things, but ultimately that's what propelled me to dropping out and starting Footy Access.
With the gap that you clearly saw in the marketplace, was it more about players not being seen? Was it about clubs not telling their stories well? families not having one place to understand who is coming next, why are they coming next, what's the path they've taken. Share a little bit with us around where the real white space was for you.
Right. So I would say it's a mixture of all those things, but they developed over time. Initially, it was about players weren't being recognized or showcased properly. Right. That was really the main gap. As time went on, that developed into some of the different things that you had mentioned. There was clubs that weren't telling their proper story for their academies or their players, or families that didn't understand the landscape enough. So it developed into those things, but initially it really was about just highlighting a player, regardless of who you are, where you're from, what team you're playing on. It really started on that.
What did you learn quickly that you were wrong about at the beginning? Like every startup, there's so many kind of wrong turns that lead to right pathways. And it seems like you're doing a whole lot right at the moment, which is incredible to see. Where did you fail quickly, I guess, and right your path?
Yeah, I would say it's more so on the business side of things, right? So I would mistake, which it is valuable, I would mistake a lot of views as in success to a business, right? So I would find trouble in deciphering through that, right? I would see, okay, we got 500,000 views on a post. And on the business side of things, we're all over the place, right? Because I'm coming from a background of zero experience in business. So I think that's the main thing that took me a lot to get through is some of those vanity metrics, although they're great and they're what helps us grow as a platform, as a company. But on the business side of things, that's where I had difficulty in kind of understanding that. And now it's obviously trying to balance both and understanding what's valuable on both ends, how one complements the other. But that was really the initial struggle.
That's great. Before we get into some of the specifics around parents and what's real and what's not real and what to look for, how did you source your information at the beginning? And how are you sourcing your information today?
So I would look on Twitter all the time at different news outlets, whether it be academies, to different individuals that cover the youth soccer scene, to also going on the website and just understanding the statistics, the standings, who has the most goals scored in a division, just calculating it. And I would do it that because nobody was really presenting the information properly. So I would do that just by myself, by everything that's just available online, by just doing some research. And now that's developed, right? We pretty much get hit up every day with different information, but that's initially how we did it. And pretty much at the start of it, people wouldn't give me the time of day. I would ask for a roster and they'd look at me. We have no idea who you are. We're not going to disclose who we have on our roster, which is fair, right? But that's initially how it was. It was anything that was discoverable online. I would make it my job to bring all that information together and present it in a way that was easy for anyone to engage with and repost.
So were you basically amplifying information that was already there, or
Right, exactly. Yeah, that was the main issue, is taking all of this information that's very complicated to any parent or player that doesn't understand the landscape through and through, and making that into something that was digestible for anyone to come across and understand.
He simplifies it so well. 30 podcasts in, I still don't know anything, David. So I'm just as confused, maybe more so than when I started.
Well, our dream might come true. We might be on Footy Access.
Yeah, there you go. There you go.
See, it did work out. The question is that help us out a little bit, because obviously we're not from this world yet.
Mhm.
You got highlights, you got rankings, scouting opinions. Like, how do you separate it all? How do you communicate that? Is this something that, because I know there's the parents who view it, but then there's obviously the kids who view your content, and it's two separate worlds in a way.
Yeah. Yeah, the way we separate it internally as a company is different key customer segments. So there's different posts and different reports we do that address different key customer segments. So if we're talking about us posting the US men's national team roster today, for example, that addresses the casual fan in America, that addresses parents, that addresses players, that addresses scouts, agents, whoever it is in the soccer system. Us posting a bracket from a tournament is specific to the customer segments that are participating, such as players, families, to coaches, to staff that are participating in that tournament. So each piece of content addresses a different key segment. Some of them overlap. Some of them are very specific to a customer segment. We'll post rankings, and that is very specific to scouts, whether that be professional scouts or college scouts or scouts of other different academies. And then obviously it helps out the players, right? We'll get into that. But that's really how we break down each piece of content that we're publishing. It all serves a purpose to different customer segments. Sometimes it serves a purpose for every single customer segment.
And you think about that, on a weekly basis where you've got X amount of posts for each customer segment, essentially, where you're trying to reach and grow the audience. It's to your point earlier, it's like you're pulling information and you're amplifying it. Maybe there's some opinion around players to watch or something like that, right? But that could be based upon goals or something else.
Right.
How do you have the discipline to ensure that the content you're sharing is content that is real, justified, and honest, I guess?
The main thing, and we set the basis of the company on being positive no matter what we post. So on Instagram alone, probably to this day, we're just short of 3,000 posts. And that's been in less than 4 years. So we've never missed a day. We stay consistent, but we stay honest to being positive in a landscape and a social media space that is looking for posts that are just for the sake of views and likes, right? That'll never be the goal, posting things for the sake of like and views. It's always been for the sake of influencing a family, a player, a club in a positive manner, right? And that set the guiding principles for anything that we're publishing. As I'd mentioned, we gather all this information, we present it in the right way. That's to the extent that we're taking it, right? It's not about how we're looking to clickbait anyone. It's just a matter of how you present that information to maximize the viewership engagement that it can get ultimately.
I mean, I told a couple of my colleagues that I'm going to be doing an interview with you. So the kids heard it too. And obviously it's like, wow, kids are like, what? Footy Access. Tell us a little bit, what do you think it means for the young player to be featured by you? Do you think, but between us, obviously we'll be on the air, do you think there's
thousands, if not millions of people?
Between us and the four other people, David.
Between us. There's some distraction to that, to the kids too, don't you think? In a way, this idea of being in front of the camera.
The way I see it is it's on that guiding principle of being positive, right? If it's social media, it's to give recognition to a player, scout, or club, organization, right? It's to positively impact them through social media. If it's rankings, it actually becomes a validator for a lot of players, and they're able to then use that as leverage to present to a college if they're getting recruited. We've actually had stories of players that I bet we have a bunch. We had a post go out that was talking about the top scores throughout the season. That player at the end of the season ends up messaging us and telling us that thank you for the post. It actually ended up helping me get recruited to go play in college soccer, right? So I think it's the way that we present the information that we post and do rankings. It's supposed to positively impact everyone. How a player or a family might interpret that and use that is, I think, the disconnect, where sometimes they might use that as I'm better than this other player, right? Or I mean more because I'm ranked X on Footy Access, right? That's not where we position and why we do rankings, right? It's to help players that if you're on the list, you're able to then use that to help get recruited, right? That's the ultimate idea. If I would have been on a list like Footy Access when I was playing, I would probably send it out to every single coach, send screenshots to families, to parents, to friends. But that's the ultimate difficulty, is how parents interpret that information, how players interpret that information. And a lot of the times they're sharing that information within their families. And it's about, number one, acknowledging that you're featured, and whether that be in the rankings, whether it be on social media, but it doesn't define who you are as a player, right? It doesn't define whether you're on the list or not. It should just be something that could help you in the long term, or wherever you're trying to play, whether it be professionally or college or semi-pro, whatever it may be. But it shouldn't define who you are as a player, in my eyes. We did a video with Julian Hall, which was one of our first videos that we ever did on YouTube. And the reason why we did that video and why we are having a setup, cameras all over him, is because I was in the Dominican Republic and the United States had won the U15 CONCACAF championship. And what Julian did after they won was come up to me and thank me for being there and being able to bring exposure to him and the team, right? And what I took that as was I want people to see who this player is off the field as well, because there's moments like that that people don't even understand of who this person is, right? So then that's why we're doing an interview with the player. That's why we're on the sidelines recording players, because it does mean a lot to them.
Yeah, and Julian Hall, what a player. It's a great story. When parents hear the word exposure, usually they think about, or we think about, showcases, highlight videos, college coaches, scouts, social media, maybe a big tournament, all the things, right? From your seat, which is a unique one, what does exposure actually mean, and what's most effective?
Number one that comes into my mind, obviously, the social media side of things, just given the access point. The barrier to entry there, it's so easy. You could go to a field, you could record a match, and someone from Saudi Arabia or someone from England could come across that video. So I think that's the highest point of exposure. But to your point, there's different layers of exposure dependent on what someone is trying to accomplish. If I'm a player in the youth soccer system and I want more exposure, that could mean the differentiator between me playing in a certain league versus another, and what that league attracts in terms of recruiters, scouts, colleges. So that's the other side of exposure that I see. And for us, and what I try to do with Footy Access is explain those different layers of exposure, because I think we have an obligation to educate and inform our audience of those things as well.
Do you think that what you're doing is starting to replace this concept? Is it growing in parallel to it? I mean, what hole is it filling?
I think we are complementary to the market. There's different ways to get recruited. For us, as I had mentioned, the barrier to entry for social media is basically none. You could go to a field, you could record, you could capture anything you want. I think we're complementary in that regard. We're not looking to replace any type of showcase or different tournament, but rather complementary to. There isn't just tournaments, showcases, camps that you could attend. You could also get recognized just through a platform on social media. And we have seen that happen through things that we've posted.
Are you going there to be surprised by talent you didn't think about, or is this you're usually going there to see something in particular?
It's a balance of both. It's going into a tournament or showcase with the understanding of different players that are going to be there on different clubs, on different age groups, and understanding who those players are. And we'll be naturally attracted to those matches. And we'll also see different players within those matches that shock us, right? So a perfect example of this was we're partnered with the Best of Cup, which is a tournament in the Northeast region that brings together USYS teams, ECNL teams, MLS Next teams, a variety of different leagues in the youth soccer system. And there was a goalkeeper that was committed Division II, and he's playing against the Philadelphia Union Academy with a bunch of U.S. national team players, things like that. And we came into the game looking at all the Philadelphia Union players, the guys on the national team. And then we see this goalkeeper that he's not even 6 foot, that had an outstanding game. And then we're posting about him, which ultimately, who knows if he would ever gotten exposure to that extent. And I think that video ended up doing minimum 100,000 views and got across a bunch of different.
So, David, what is your business model, and has that evolved with the business as well, or has it been the same thing from the beginning?
Yeah, it's definitely evolved, but initially it was just sponsorship deals and advertisements. So if there's different programs being offered for different players at different levels, advertising those different things, college camps, advertising those, fill in the gap there. Being able to be almost like a middleman for players and then trusted organizations, because we become this trusted community in the youth soccer system. So that was the initial, I'd say 100% for the first couple of years. It was the advertising revenue for different brands, things like that. But that has ultimately evolved as we try to diversify different revenue streams as we continue to grow. Then the latest edition of that within the last year was releasing our Footy Access website, which allows us to then offer premium subscriptions. And what that has helped different parents, players, and scouts do is a centralized hub to have access to a list, a database of 50 to 100 different players amongst different age groups, right? You can't really do that on social media properly. You're not going to write a bio for 100 different players on social media, right? There has to be a balance, and that's how we're able to capture the value from what we generate on social media, and then that is then pushed to something that we own, which is the website, right? We don't own Meta, we don't own TikTok. Those are just the funnels to then something that we're able to control more is the website, and it's been able to become a success for a lot of different players and scouts.
So you curate your basic, it's a curated collection.
Yeah,
The website
so
would be,
and that's what it's been able to do. It's validate players, help get exposure to the highest level of scouts, to different colleges, whatever level you're looking to play at, and that's what we've been able to do with the website. So it's evolved over time with advertising to the website, offering subscriptions through there, and then we also have a newsletter that we're monetizing as well. It's going out to over 15,000 different parents, players, things like that. So we got all our bases covered in terms of that.
We all know the long list of challenges within youth soccer in this country. We all talk about the fact that pay to play is real and it's not going anywhere for a lot of different reasons. How does your service not turn into a pay to play type of service where there are parents who are willing to do anything for their kids, including getting them access or having them in one of your lists?
Yeah, I will say it's impossible to pay to be featured on anything we've ever published. We've gotten the offer pretty much every single day since we started.
I can only imagine.
We haven't taken 1 cent from.
I wonder if I know some of the
parent.
parents who called you.
I wouldn't be surprised, honestly. And I get it, right? If I'm a parent and I know that a platform could bring exposure to my son or my daughter, and that could be the differentiator of them being recruited to a college to play pro, like I get it. But that's not why we started, and that also dilutes the brand of taking any type of money from any parent, player, or family.
I will tell you things you already know. Parents, forget the kids right now, we're parents. Parents are obsessed with exposure. They have this idea of, I want eyes on my kids, and especially in the levels that our kids play. And I hear many times, especially now during tryout season and kids have been moving from team to team, parents thinking about, well, I want the kid in this team because they'll have more eyes. They're not thinking it's going to be more minutes on the field. What kind of eyes are going to be on my kid? In a way, if I'm getting this right, you're almost relieving that pressure, because if there's a platform like yours that is objectively looking at kids, that would be a vehicle of exposure. And
Right.
I think could relieve some of that pressure. On the other hand, you're mostly in these major tournaments. You're not going to the peripheries to look at smaller teams, or are you?
We're starting to delve into that a bit more. So us partnering with that tournament I had mentioned, the Best of Cup, it brings together all these different leagues. Doesn't matter what club you're playing for or what league you're playing for, you're able to compete amongst each other, and it removes that barrier of just you're competing in one league over the other. Right? It brings a tournament together. It brings teams together like a tournament like that, and we're looking at different partners to align with that are continuing to do that. There's a bunch of these large conglomerates that own a lot of different tournaments, a lot of different clubs. They're having ID sessions, they're having different tournaments that they're hosting with international teams and domestic teams competing in them. So for us, we're looking to align with more tournament providers on that end. So we're not limiting ourselves to who can get exposure and where we're bringing exposure to as well.
Have you seen kind of your stories make a big change in a kid's trajectory?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'll tell you one that comes to mind. I knew the dad, and the dad, honest to you guys, to everyone listening to the podcast, has never, we've never posted him because he didn't deserve it, right? He didn't have the recognition or exposure.
You didn't post the dad or the kid?
The kid. The dad either.
Liron was asking for
I
a
know,
friend.
I'm already thinking for a friend. This guy keeps funds to get on Footy Access, this dad. But
So we covered a club. It was an MLS club. We did the behind the scenes video with them, and the dad ended up messaging me a couple months later, and he said, "Hey, David, I just wanted to let you know that my son had different offers to go play professionally, sign a first team contract. We ended up going with this club because of a video we saw Footy Access post, and we signed a professional contract with them. So to hear stories like that, where you're bringing exposure to an organization, right? We talk about the players, we talk about the families, but an organization, and then that will then influence a player into making that decision to sign professionally with this club. It shows the power of what we've been able to do and the value of what we've been able to provide in the market to all these customer segments. That's a full circle moment of the families that influence, the players that influence, the club is then influenced because of what we've been able to cover and what we've been able to bring exposure to.
Is there a flip side to it where, back to the parent, a parent would call you, pitch the kid, forget paying for the kid, but pitch the kid, and it's a kid that's not on your radar, and you would go see that kid? Or usually you really keep a distance between that and you have your own network?
We try to be as objective as possible. So I do have a lot of relationships with a lot of the scouts and organizations, right? And they're always telling me about players that they're either one, trying to recruit, or two, that is within their organization. And I'm all ears. I'm always all ears. It doesn't mean that we're going to post any player. You can tell me as much information as you want, but what we'll do is we'll take that information, we'll share it with the team, we'll validate what they're saying is true, whether that be the goals that they're scoring, to the form that they're on, to their story of where they came from. We try to keep it as objective as possible, go through its rounds of who that player is or what they're saying to myself or anyone in our organization, because we also have a journalist that's really sourcing a lot of this information as well. But that's really how we break it down, narrow it down to what stories we may be reporting on, what we're not reporting on. Maybe we don't report on now, but we bank that information, and as things progress, we see, okay, wow, this is an amazing player, or they're doing a lot of great things. Then we bring exposure to that story or that player. That's kind of the relationship that we have with different things that are being reported to us, and then how we take it internally.
How it's fairly easy, I would think, to track strikers and attacking players in general, whether it's goals or goal contributions. I would argue goalkeepers too, who have legitimate statistics that you can track. What about the rest of the 11 who aren't showing up with goal contributions or saves, for that matter, that also need and want exposure, and probably need it even more so in a lot of ways because they're not scoring goals or saving them?
That's where we turn to the experts in the industry, different scouts that are recruiting these players day to day, that have a better understanding of what makes a player quote unquote great objectively. We don't necessarily determine if this player is great or not. We just determine they played a great match, or we think that this is a great goal, or they scored a hat trick in a match, right? We're going to bring exposure to that. But we lean on the relationships that we've built to, if a player is a 6, right? How is he getting exposure? That is a whole different conversation to how you bring a striker into getting exposure, right? It's much easier to, you don't even have to be in the soccer industry. You see a striker score 3 goals, it's like, okay, he's a great player, right? So thankfully, everyone within the organization has an understanding, has played at a level, right? I played Division I soccer. My business partner played for the U.S. men's national team, played professionally. Everyone within the organization played to an extent. So there's a grasp and an understanding of what different players on the field, what their duties are, but then also leveraging the network that we have and the trusted people that we have relationships with to sometimes determine that and lean on them for that information.
David, what do parents think gets noticed that actually doesn't matter as much?
That's a really good question. Honestly, I think it is the social media stuff. Like it serves its purpose if you're able to help it like recruit you, but it doesn't mean that you're going to go pro if you're posted, or that it means that you should be going to Europe. I think that's the misconception, that it's great that we have a voice and we're able to bring recognition to players, but that shouldn't skyrocket your expectations either, right? If someone does good, we're looking to bring exposure to that, but there should be a sense of humility and understanding on your situation for a player and a family to if there's a feature, if you're getting exposure, that doesn't mean that, or there's sometimes it's the comment section of people saying different things, and that becomes the reality. I think that's the misconception. It's really, it's a fine line on how you interpret those things.
Do you see that there's like a sweet spot for ages for what you call exposure or kind of putting kid on a platform? Because, for example, is 17 too late? Is it 12, 13, 14?
Yeah.
Because it's exactly what you just mentioned. It's like, oh, well, my kid was on Footy Access, but bro, your kid was 9.
It's a good question. A lot of people actually ask that. So we typically start bringing exposure to a lot of these players when U.S. soccer or any national team starts recruiting them into national ID camps, which is typically U14, U15. Right before that, I think it's not fair to the player to start bringing exposure and ranking them on different things. Right. They're not fully developed to the point that even U.S. Soccer is considering them for any type of ID camps. So that's really where we start. And you have your early bloomers, right? I think the most obvious one is a player like Cavan, which was 12, 13 years old, playing U15, then playing MLS, right? You have those exceptions, but that's really where we typically start. But that goes to any age, right? There's posts that you'll find that we're highlighting a player like Alex Freeman, who is already in the first team, Villarreal, was playing first team, Orlando City. He had a great season, but he's older, right? He's way older than a lot of the players that we cover. But what that content does is help inspire some of these younger players, and that's why we really cover those stories. Right? As a player that went through the academy at Orlando City, played on the second team, played on the first team, then transferred over to Spain, La Liga. Those stories also help inspire a lot of the young players that follow our account. And that goes back to the different pieces of content that we post serve different key segments, have different objectives for why we're posting them. So really sky's the limit in terms of the age of what we cover, but in terms of when we initially cover them, usually that U14, U15. Keep it simple terms.
No, it's important because I'm going to get a lot of calls after this podcast, unfortunately.
We've covered this a bit in different episodes, where there seems to be a point where US kids, where they realize it sinks in whatever level they're playing at, that they're not going to play in the Prem, or they're not going to play in La Liga or Serie A or whatever it may be. And then they start thinking about, well, I should go to college and I should get an education. How much of that do you hear? How much of that do you see? Or do you think it's just a total myth and it's something that doesn't exist the way we've portrayed it?
Yeah, it happens all the time. I hear it all the time. Essentially every single family that I come into contact to, players that I come into contact to, a lot of the times the way that they interact with me gives me an understanding of what they expect from a son or a daughter. They sometimes expect that they should be signing a professional contract today. Sometimes they think that they're too good for a team and that they should leave. The way I see it is that understand what the goal is for a player and the family. That becomes your North Star. And what's in service of accomplishing that is what you should do. It doesn't matter in what time frame that's accomplished. It doesn't matter if it's you're signing a pro contract at 15 or you go to college and then you get drafted and then you're on the second team and then you sign a first team contract at 25. If your objective is to go pro, I don't think there's a set timeline on that. And I think a lot of the struggles that a lot of families and players have is that they see their peers, just mainly on what we cover, they see their peers signing professional contracts. They see that their peers they have an agent that's representing them to then go get them a contract, right? And they feel obligated to also be at that level, which it's okay not to be at that level. It's okay not to sign a pro contract at 15, 16 years old. And I think, unfortunately, people have become desensitized to that, of signing a contract so young. But I think the best thing to do is really understand what's valuable to you. Is it to play at a high level, at the club level? Then you go play college soccer, you get a good education, you're able to get a scholarship, and then you're able to then go play afterwards, or you're able to have a career off the field. And either of those options are okay. But I think most families and most players don't know really what that North Star is for them. They just see everyone else signing pro contract. It sounds amazing. I also want to sign a pro contract. I think that's
Yeah.
really the issue.
So for you, when you're looking at kind of the holistic way of looking at so many kids, right? What excites you? Is it like telling a story of this top end kid, or is it telling that discovery story? Like,
If I had to say, it would likely be the ones that are the underdog stories of a player. We did a post a couple days ago, if not yesterday. My days are all over the place. But a player on San Jose Earthquakes that was playing Division II college soccer. Then he went to go play Division I college soccer. Then he got drafted. Then he ended up getting released and went to another club. That is what interests me the most, and that's the stories that I love us telling, because it then inspires other players to then also understand that you don't need to be signing these pro contracts on a certain timeline, right? Because you go play college soccer Division II doesn't mean that you can't go play professionally. One of the stories that was breaking in the last couple of years was that Agaman, who was playing, I believe, Division III college soccer, and then made his way through, went to go play at, I think, Rhode Island, if I'm not
URI.
mistaken.
Yeah.
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 And then he's getting drafted. And then he goes and plays with Charlotte FC. Then he ends up running a transfer to Derby County overseas. And then he's on the U.S. men's national team, and unfortunately ended up getting injured recently before the World Cup. But it's stories like that that inspire a lot of players, but then also makes me happy to see that it doesn't matter who you are or where you play, that you're able to bring exposure to those players, and you're able to recognize the adversity and the journey for a lot of those guys.
so you don't find it overwhelming? I mean, there's just so many players.
Yeah,
It's like I just don't even. I can't even get my brain around like how this even begins to work.
yeah, it is. It is overwhelming at first. Once, for us, we start aligning with a lot of these different leagues, that helps us better service and cover the whole entire landscape. One league at a time, right? One organization at a time, and we're able to help grow and scale that way. And then for the leagues themselves, it helps them um, also become a better high profile event, because it's easily accessible to be recruited, to be seen, to be engaged with. So that's why we're starting to align with a lot of those tournament providers. I just had a meeting a couple weeks ago with one of them that runs a lot of different tournaments in the United States that include international teams from Mexico or from overseas in Europe. And the main thing they said on the call was like, I wish that there was something like this when I was growing up and playing. And that's really why I started initially, is exactly that. So it is a bit overwhelming at first, but with the help of some of these organizations and partnering with them, that helps clear the space a bit in terms of understanding.
Well, the good news is, with the number of leagues and the number of organizations and players, you have a whole lifetime worth of work ahead of you.
Yeah, that's true. We'll never be short of coverage and stories. There's some that pop up every single day. So that's a good point.
Is this part of how you see the vision of Footy Access? Because now you're gaining all this knowledge, you understand the stories you're telling, you see how much effect an exposure can have on a kid. And by the way, I do say kids. All of a sudden, a kid that has 100,000 people looking at some video that they did could be a mind-blowing experience. But you're gaining all this kind of industry knowledge. Do you find that people come to you for advice? And if so, how do you institutionalize that?
Yeah, it happens a lot where a player, it just happened over the weekend. A player will ask me for advice. Families will ask me for advice. And it goes back to what I'd mentioned about the North Star. Like, what's important to you guys? Is it making sure that you get a good education while also balancing soccer? Is it going to play professionally? Is it becoming financially successful? Right. Some families, some players have different objectives. It's hard to sometimes distinguish me as being associated with Footy Access and then also as a friend, because thankfully, being in this industry, I've been able to create great relationships with families and players. So it sometimes depends on who I'm talking to. If it's a friend, right, that conversation is completely different. If it's from the perspective of me in this industry, that perspective is also different. But I think it still remains true that You have to understand really what your goals are, and everything then on every single day, every single week is in service of that long-term goal.
Got it.
Have we lost the script a little bit? Have we become so in love with the highlight or the exposure that we've lost the reason the kids are playing to a certain degree? And do you see that? Do you feel that? I mean, I'm not suggesting that you guys are a part of that at all, but
Yeah.
the world we live in, right?
Right. I think yes, because there are different platforms or different organizations that will post anything for the sake of a highlight, whatever makes someone laugh, or it depends, right? Some platforms are that's their mission, is to make people laugh, to just get views, get engagement. I do think sometimes things are posted for the sake of posting them. I do see that a lot, and that's not just in soccer. That's across various different sports,
Yeah,
different
for sure.
industries. Yeah, life. A lot of people post things for the sake of posting them, and I do think we've shied away from really what matters when you're posting things. And that's really why we have things like our newsletter, we have things like our website. It shies away from the realities of some just flooded social media. People just look through anything and everything in the matter of a minute. And what becomes valuable to someone is we've lost it in terms of what you're saying, Matt. Like that's what we've come to, is that isn't as valuable anymore. So that's why we have these different pieces of inventory, we like to call it, like the website, newsletter, offering a different type of value that isn't just social.
Well, I mean, it leads me to this next point. I have a 14-year-old boy, be a soccer player, but I've always curbed his social media interaction and what things he can put on it. He has very little highlights on his very little posts. Do you think that, and it's a mistake? I think I made a mistake. I think I should have allowed him to push things a little bit further
At 14?
at 14.
No, no, I don't think so. I see players that post too much, like they'll post everything. And the reality of it is, the way I see it is, let's say it's a top player in the system, and they continue to work hard, they stay consistent, they stay healthy, they will be recognized ultimately, whether that be at the collegiate level, professional level. Right? I don't think a great player is going to be the end all be all, will be what they post on social media. So to your point, Liron, no, you're all good. I think you're in the clear.
By the
David, I
way,
appreciate that.
Laurent, there are other proof points, because you got a great kid who's not pushing himself on the world. So
I know, but you know what? Actually, it came up. Thank you, Matt, for that. But it actually did come up because I remember there was we were in the car one day, and he talked about this friend of his who had, I don't know, 3,000 followers, let's say, on Instagram, and he has 1,000. I'm just throwing numbers, but he has a pretty low. And he's like, if I was more of a participant, and he tried to be the dad, it'd be like, who cares about how many people follow you on Instagram and see some highlight that you did 3 years ago against Dusk. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to play him this episode, and I'll say, look, you're not going to listen to me, but you're definitely going to listen to David, right? And be like, then no problem. So thank you, David.
I will say it can help.
Oh,
I will say it can help. I mean, that's really what the basis of really where we started, is being able to bring exposure off of one video. It could be seen by anyone. But I also think that if you're a great player, that video won't matter if it's posted or not, right? If you're a great player. But I think it could help. It could help that one person sees it, one extra person sees it, 2 people see it, 3 people see it. It's just 3 more people that wouldn't have seen it. But if you're a great player, I wouldn't stress too much about what you're posting on social media, how many highlights that you've posted. I personally know a family and a player that completely shut off their social media, probably had no post. They're starting the MLS right now and play every single minute, and they're wanted by every single club. So it's whatever you want, to be honest. I mean, hopefully it's a great player and you're able to get recognized no matter what. But some players can benefit off of the exposure that they're posting on social media.
I just want to make sure he doesn't have more followers than the podcast. That's really what I'm trying to get into.
But if he does, then you can start collaborating with him. It works out.
David, how much you think about when you started this 4 years ago, and it's incredibly hard to start a business, and you started a media company that's now evolving into a tech company with multiple revenue streams. generally speaking, how much more interest is there in youth soccer, do you think, in this country, like at the elite levels, than there was 4 years ago?
Oh, it's completely shifted. Yeah, I think it's completely shifted. There's so much attention that's now focused on North America as a whole, and there's more media pages coming up every single month. When I started this almost 4 years ago, no one else had anywhere to go to. It was just us. So that helped us, right? And we've had to evolve because there's so many now, but that's because the game's grown, right? So the way I see it, there's more people covering the game, which number one, that's the reason why I even started. So I can't be mad that there's other platforms trying to bring exposure to the game, right? It's just a matter of how they do that is sometimes it leaves a bad taste in my mouth, but it's evolved so much, and I think it's only the tip of the iceberg of where this game will be headed in the United States primarily, because it's still not a mainstream sport here, right? It's growing. We all know that, but it's still not a mainstream sport. There still hasn't been, let's say, a huge influx of development that has completely changed our national team or has completely changed the whole entire organization and scope of what the United States market is. There's still so much untapped potential, and that's what excites me of there's so much still left to be developed in the United States as it relates to soccer. So
Yeah.
I think it's just starting off, and I'm just glad that Footy Access started when it did, because we're now in a position of we have a voice, and we're able to then use that voice surrounding the FIFA World Cup, different youth events, different tournaments, and even looking forward to LA 2028, right? The roster of the United States is going to be the 23 and under. So there's going to be a lot of young players within that squad. So I think we're hitting the market at the perfect time, but there's so much room to still grow. So that's what really excites me is being along in that journey, and hopefully that Footy Access has that influence to help it grow as well, continue to grow.
And so you're going to have more and more of those types of stories, right? Somebody you featured 3-4 years ago that is now playing on a first team and eventually playing for the national team or is playing in Europe, be able to look back and see the impact. I'm not suggesting that's what propelled them, but
Right.
you surfaced it, you know,
Yeah.
and you found a player that was something special, and that player did the work, you know, the rest of it.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. And for us, it's just highlighting that, right? We're not
Yeah.
changing the trajectory of Julian Hall because we posted a video. Look, he was going to be great regardless if we posted it or not, right? And there's a lot of
Right.
those players. So
I think that's part of the key, right? And like you said with the social media, if you work hard, you're destined, you're talented, that window of opportunity is going to show itself.
yeah,
Can't force that timing.
I mean, I think that's true, but we still talk a lot about in this country that there are still players who don't end up getting an opportunity at the right levels, right? And yeah, if you're super, super talented, it's more likely at this stage, I would hope, that kids get an opportunity regardless of socioeconomic
right.
challenges with our system, right? Which is one of the issues.
Right.
But there's still kids out there, you know, buried in leagues that don't necessarily have the right badge,
Right.
who or not playing in leagues at all.
Right.
They could eventually if they get the right exposure, can end up in the right place and could end up, you know, making something out of this.
Yeah, and that could be all the difference, which is exactly why the exposure side of things is so important through us. Is that could be all the difference of a player that might get buried into a league that no one's heard of or a club that's never been heard of. Because there are so many of those players. I know those players personally that I grew up with that are great players that I've seen, but through a multitude of different reasons, they didn't get that exposure. But if they could have, through one video, one extra person that saw it, that could have changed the trajectory of their career.
But, you know, as we wrap up, David, I mean, I'm thinking about it again as a parent. A couple of weeks ago, you and I just spoke on the phone and I saw it on your feed. You featured a son of a very good friend of mine.
Oh, yeah.
Son.
Yeah.
Now, the exposure of this player probably doesn't mean much to this player because that player is a 13-year-old boy. He's playing for La Masia. He's already got all the attention in the world.
Mhm.
So when you were posting that, and maybe I'm going too deep because I love making movies and telling stories, but when you're doing that, it probably wasn't really about the kid. It was, you were trying to tell another story, because it wasn't, unlike we're saying, where you're exposing somebody you're giving them kind of a window.
Right.
This kid has already had that window. He's been on every
Right.
news channel in Spain and in his home country. When you feature something like that, what is the bigger story you're trying to tell?
It's more so the recognition to someone that is having that success, is giving them the recognition of what they're being able to accomplish, and then also inspire other people that may see that story, right? It doesn't matter what club you're playing for or what that journey is at 13 years old to La Masia, whatever age that is, or at 20 years old, right? It's being able to highlight and recognize those stories and inspire someone else that might be able to maybe pursue the same thing, or maybe not pursue the same thing.
I was reflecting. I think, David, we got introduced through a mutual acquaintance who's been great to our show, and my first reaction to him was, I'm not so sure that these sites are good for the psyche of kids.
Right.
And I was a little bit concerned. And he said, listen, I've known him since he was, one guy with a camera trying to tell great stories, like to have a positive impact. I don't think I knew a tenth of it as far as like what you're actually trying to create and what you have created and the impact that you've had. So it's just super impressive of what you built, and excited to see what's to come.
Man, thank you so much, because really what we've been able to accomplish, I say we because it's not me that's Footy Access. We have a team of 7. We have a partnerships team, content team, journalists, graphic designers, my business partner, right? It's all of us. And I wanted to make sure I said that before we ended. Everyone in the company has the same mission, is bringing exposure to the young players within North America primarily. And we've stayed true to that mission, and everyone that's involved within the company has stayed true to that. So to hear that other people are speaking positively of myself, that means a lot to me, and it shows that we're doing the right thing.
David, you're a storyteller, buddy. That's what I'm telling you.
That means a lot.
It's
It
really
means a lot
great.
coming from you.
Yeah. The biggest mouth here. How do you say wow with emojis? Yes, I say
The line
emojis.
from David that parents probably need most is this: it doesn't mean that you're going to go pro just because you've been posted, even with millions of views potentially. This is the whole tension of this episode, because in youth soccer, attention can start to feel like progress. A post feels like progress. A ranking feels like progress. A highlight feels like progress. A platform noticing your kid feels like progress. And sometimes it can help. David is very clear about that. But he's also clear that exposure is not the same thing as development. It's not proof. It's not a guarantee, and it should not skyrocket a family's expectations overnight.
Yeah, I mean, this is the part that kind of hit me, and I took note during this interview. David wasn't saying that social media is fake, as you keep saying, Matt. He's saying that it has to be interpreted carefully. He said it serves its purpose if you're able to help it recruit you and for you. Then he immediately, adds a little warning. It does not mean that Europe is next if you were on one of our posts, and it doesn't mean that you have a pro contract coming next. It just doesn't mean that your life is about to change or go on a different path. And for parents, this is a little bit confusing and hard to understand, because we're looking for signs, right? We want to know, is our kid doing okay? We want to know if the work they're putting in matters. We want to know if somebody's seeing them. And being seen should not become the same as being worthy of being seen.
Yeah, I mean, that is why David's North Star idea really matters. He said families have to understand the goal for the player and for the family. That becomes your North Star. That is really the practical takeaway. What is actually important for your kid? College, a scholarship, a pro pathway, the right school, happiness, love of the game, the right environment, and ultimately how they see themselves as a player and as a person. Once you know that, exposure becomes a tool. Without that, exposure becomes a chase.
A lot of heavy words. David did give us some relief, so everybody relax. At the end, he said something like, I think a lot of families should hear. If you're a great player, I wouldn't stress too much about what you're posting on social media. But it doesn't mean ignore it, right? Because then he goes immediately and he says, hey, Liron, one video can help. One person will see it, then 2, then 3. And those are the people who would not have seen it any other way. So it's real, and the player still has to be a player. They still got to work hard to be real. The level has to be real. The game has to hold up even when the camera is off.
And in a pay to play system, I think another quote matters. David said, "It's impossible to pay to be featured on anything we've ever published." That's an important line because the minute visibility can simply be bought, exposure becomes another product families feel pressured to purchase. And youth soccer already has enough of those. And kudos to David for holding the line.
Yeah, so the question is not whether social media matters. That's obvious, it does. The question is whether is it serving the player or whether the player is starting to serve the exposure. Thank you so much, David, for coming on, talking to us, and giving us a little bit of nuance that is so sorely needed. If this episode helped you on whatever social media platform you're on, you hypocrites, make sure you like it, make sure you share it. This has got to be a helpful episode, right, Matt? I mean, any soccer parent should hear this. This is hashtag Chasing the Game, Youth Soccer in America, a collab.
See you, Liron.